Since the finish of the Cold War, Europe has been fixated on destroying disdain as an easy route to timeless harmony. To put it plainly, a world eased from human struggle. This is an ideal world, and we know from prior endeavors to transform utopias into reality that one of the primary survivors of these dreams is opportunity. For this situation, opportunity of articulation will be imperiled. Germany has, for a considerable length of time, been at the front of this undertaking, so it shouldn't come as a shock that the German government presently needs to empower its specialists to find virtual entertainment organizations as much as 50 million euros for not erasing on the We Paid speech. Fury had and defamatory fake news in the span of 24 hours in the wake of being in Germany, criminalization of hate speech and fake news viewed as a genuine method for safeguarding a majority rule system and the verifiable truth against surge. That is the reason a standard German lawmaker, an individual from the European Parliament quite a while back, countered my analysis of regulation against Holocaust disavowal by demanding that European residents have a protected right to reality. The terrifying ramifications of this assertion didn't irritate him by any stretch of the imagination. He didn't understand that it would be invited by any despot needing a syndication on state-endorsed facts and truth in Germany and other European popular governments. The option to free speech is only one among many privileges that must be adjusted against different freedoms, values, and contemplations, be it public request, pride, majority rule system, strict sensibilities, security, as equality, and so on and so forth. In the US, the principal corrections insurance of discourse can't be adjusted against different privileges. That rule has served the US well. When Heiko Maas, Germany's clergyman of equity, recently reported that the public authority was arranging new regulation to condemn counterfeit news, he said, "Maligning and malevolent tattle are not covered under the right to speak freely of discourse. I guess as equity specialists should arraign that, even on the web. Anybody who attempts to control the political conversation with lies should know its outcomes." This stating sounds shockingly recognizable to overcome people and gatherings who during the Cold War were battling mistreatment behind the Iron Drapery. The Soviet Union made it a serious wrongdoing to disseminate misleading and offensive data maligning the Soviet social and political framework. Such criminal regulations were generally utilized by the Kremlin to quietness nonconformists, common freedoms activists, strict developments, and gatherings in the Soviet republics battling for public autonomy. As of late in international concerns, Heidi Turek, an individual at the German Marshall Assets Transoceanic Foundation and an associate teacher of global history, approaches the German government's focusing of US tech monsters like Facebook, Twitter, Google, and Microsoft as a quarrel over how much free discourse a vote-based system can take. That's what she adds. Online entertainment organizations have brought this regulation upon themselves by neglecting to comprehend the verifiable motivations behind why the German definition is not quite the same as the American one. Germany's push for upholding its cutoff points on free discourse on the European level has been happening since the finish of the Cold War. An European Association choice from 2008 pointed toward battling bigotry, and xenophobia called for harder disdain discourse regulation, and for each EU-part state to pass regulations condemning Holocaust disavowal. These regulations are currently on the books in 13 EU nations. They were totally passed after the fall of the Berlin Wall, not during the principal many years following the slaughter of European Jews during the Second Great War. The regulation has set off a rush of memory regulations across Europe that challenges scholastic opportunity and the right to speak freely of discourse. In a few previous communist states in Focal and Eastern Europe, it's currently a criminal offense to deny or limit the violations of socialism. Russia has passed a regulation prohibiting analysis of the activities of the Soviet Union during the Second Great War, and Ukraine's parliament has taken on a regulation condemning put-downs onto the country's contenders for public freedom in the 20th hundred years. Among them were bunches ensnared in mass killings of Jews and shafts in Western Ukraine and Poland. Latvia has embraced a regulation condemning discourse that denies the way that Latvia was involved by both Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. In the outcome of the displaced person emergency in the mid-year of 2015, the EU Magistrate for Legal Undertakings, Vera Jourova, said it was disreputable that Holocaust disavowal is a criminal offense in just 13 EU-part states. She required extra measures to combat hate speech. In 2016, the US tech monsters marked a governing set of rules with the EU date that obliged them to remove illegal hate speech or impair admittance to such satisfied with 24 hours of notice. Furthermore, presently we have the German government passing a regulation that compromises media organizations that don't erase false information and hate speech. There is no settlement on an unmistakable meaning of hate speech, and that implies that condemning practically any speech can be applied. European nations have various understandings of what constitutes illegal hate speech. In Sweden, a craftsman was sentenced to a half-year in jail for bigot and hostile banners displayed in a confidential workmanship exhibition. Similar banners were openly shown in Denmark. The First Minister was given in 1 month suspended jail sentence for saying homosexuality is a cancer on society. That wouldn't really be the situation in other European nations. Hizb ut-Tahrir, an Islamist association focused on the brutal foundation of a worldwide caliphate, is prohibited in Germany yet not in Denmark. One man's hate speech is one more man's verse, to summarize High Court Equity John Marshall Harlan. What is an unsuitable, scornful articulation to may seem like an entirely real assessment to another person. All human. Creatures are one-sided at some level or another. We as a whole know the feeling of disdain or serious abhorrence of a person or thing. If a general public truly has any desire to condemn any declaration of disdain, it would need to boycott a ton of discourse. That is not the situation. Europe is extremely particular in its way to hate speech. A few articulations of predisposition are treated as criminal offenses, others are not. This shows there is okay and unacceptable hate speech. It's all right to taunt Christians, yet not to mock Islam. There is no correspondence under the watchful eye of the law with regards to hate speech. Hate speech laws seem to be an instrument to implement normal practices, as Robert Post, U.S. master in the principal revision, has noticed. This is risky in a socially assorted society where people and gatherings buy into various standards. One would expect that the more different general public is, the more different ways individuals will find to communicate their thoughts. For example, a multicultural society needs more right to speak freely than a monocultural one. Historically, hate speech laws and laws criminalizing dissemination of bogus data are being utilized in unfree social orders to quiet political adversaries and mistreat minorities, be that as it may, even in Italy, an European vote-based system. The country's antitrust boss, Giovanni Petruzella, needs to condemn counterfeit news to debilitate his political rivals on the left and right. Plus Petruzella to Monetary Times. Post-truth in politics is one of the drivers of populism, and it is one of the threats to our democracies. As Brennan O'Neill, supervisor of Spiked, puts it, by its very definition, free discourse should include hate speech, for it should constantly be free. For 2 reasons. Everybody should be allowed to communicate what they feel, and every other person should reserve the option to choose for themselves whether those articulations are positive or negative. At the point when they use social media, companies and others look to pursue that choice for us and squash thoughts they think we see as surprising, they decrease us to the degree of kids. That is restriction's most prominent wrongdo. It infantilizes us. Allow us now to reassert our adulthood, our independence, and tell them, don't attempt to control anything for our sake. We can have an independent perspective, without a doubt. Tragically, Europe is moving somewhere new with an undeniably strong Germany, forcing its norms of aggressor and majority rule government on all of Europe.